Hi, I'm Marty Schupak for Schupak Sports. Welcome to this T-ball mini clinic, and we're going to focus today just on throwing. I received a number of emails from parents that they were like frustrated about the progress of their kids and their throwing. I'm going to show you some drills. I'm going to also give you some tips. I'll also talk about the development, physical development. I urge you, please, if you can, I ask you a favor. If you like what I speak about, please give me a thumbs up, and I welcome all comments. And of course, I would love to have you subscribe, but we're going to get right into it. And what I usually do is I just hold up a particular drill. I try to describe it, and I'll give some additions of my thoughts why we do certain things. Again, basically, this is for T-ball parents, coaches, and T-ball commissioners. But with throwing, you'll find that a lot of kids develop bad habits early on. And the older they get, it's harder to break these habits. But I don't want parents to get discouraged. You can change the habits, but it's not just the coach during practice. The parents have to reinforce this at home. And I don't want it to be a tedious thing for parents, but coaches and leagues need your support if you want to see your kids develop. T-ball, it's very difficult teaching throwing. And what happens a lot is their head of the players will wander all over the place. And as the head wanders, the ball will fly to the left, it'll fly to the right, it'll fly all over the place. In If you set up drills and if you create your own drills, which I encourage, try to have a target. And the reason being, even for 4 years old, 5 years old, and 6 years old, when you have a target, they're not going to hit the target in a particular drill. But what this does, it helps steady the head, and the ball won't wander as well as it did before. Okay, the first drill is the lie down drill, and I'll hold it close up here. And all we're doing is having the players lie down, and they can do it with a soft covered ball. And what they're doing is they're taking their throwing arm with the ball, they're bringing it up to a 90-degree angle, and then they're actually flipping it. Okay, and this is what this is doing too. It's getting used to the motion of throwing and the flip. They're using the torque of the wrist. Now, a lot of kids are too young to do that, but I like this drill. I think it's a good drill. And with some players, it'll work, and some players, it won't work. The other thing is, with young players, if they find that the hard ball or a soft covered T ball is too heavy, you could use a tennis ball. There's nothing wrong with that. And I also encourage to use different items such as bean bags, hacky sacks, and I've even used balls of yarn balls. Okay. The second drill is something that I kind of stumbled on myself. And I found that a lot of kids, and you'll see this, they don't bring their arm all the way back. And a lot of times, and it's a little above the T-ball age, when they're not bringing their arm all the way back and you tell them that they're not, they don't know what it feels like and they think they're bringing it back. What I did is I kind of created something what I call the freestanding bench drill. Now, don't go out and purchase a $50 bench. You don't have to do it. We would practice at the local elementary school, and I had access to it. I've also done this drill on bleachers, okay? But what we're doing is, with this drill, the player is going to throw it or flip it to the coach, who's going to be standing at the foot of the bench. What this is doing, this drill, because he's on a bench, his arm's going down, gravity is actually helping him bring his arm all the way back. And why is this important? It's important because, as I said, a lot of players don't know what it feels like to bring their arms all the way back. And when they do the freestanding bench drill, some of them will feel for the first time what it feels like to bring their arm all the way back. Again, don't go out and buy 12 benches for your team, whatever. If you have a freestanding bench and it's light, throw it in your trunk or use the bleachers at your local school. Okay, so that's the freestanding bench drill. And again, we're using gravity to help players feel like what it feels like to bring their arm all the way back. Okay, and but there's a couple other things. I had some notes on the back of it. Let me just see if I covered it all. Yep, gravity and muscle memory, of course. All right. Okay. Another thing is, and I always mention this too, with in T-ball, you want to try to separate skills at the beginning of the season. So if you're doing a drill and you're doing a throwing drill, don't have players catch the ball. If you're doing a drill where they have to catch the ball, don't have them throw it back. So in other words, if you do a drill, they have to catch the ball. They catch the ball and then they roll the ball away from where you are. And what I tell coaches, T-ball coaches, and actually all coaches at all levels, if you're going to spend your money on anything when you're coaching baseball or softball, do it on balls, okay? You can never have enough baseball or softballs, and you want to use buckets. And when you separate drills, you're going to need a number of baseballs. So remember, separate drills at the beginning of the season. Of course, you're going to combine skills, but first or second practice, try to separate them. And this drill is, and after this, I'm going to just go over a product. It's the knee throw drill where the player is on one knee. They're on the knee, if you remember this, with the same arm that they throw. So if they're righty, they're on the right knee. If they're lefty, they're on the left knee. You can have them throw it into a screen or a fence. And just remember, if you're throwing it into a fence, you have to find out what the policy is, either at the school or your league. When I started coaching, I got into trouble with the head of facilities because I was doing the soft toss with the hard balls, which I should never have done. And there are other options you could use, as I said, hacky sacks. I use something also called a rag ball, where I'd go to like Home Depot, buy like 5 pounds worth of rags, and I would roll 2-inch masking tape around it. I use it for the whole season. So this is another drill where you just have them on the same knee in T-ball, and you have them throwing the ball. Okay. I just want to take time just for a minute. I want to talk about development, and I'll show you one of my products, of which I'll put a link down. But I've had parents come to me crying just because their kid at the youngest age couldn't do what their next door neighbor's kid is doing. You have to tell parents, and I encourage you to have a parents meeting if you're coaching a team. I don't care what the sport is. You have to tell them that kids develop at different paces, okay? I've seen kids that couldn't really throw a ball at 6, 7, or 8, and I've seen these kids become one of the better high school pitchers for the team. You never know it. Kids develop differently as far as coordination, as far as maturity, as far as physically growing. An extreme example is a number of years ago, if you followed the NBA, there was a player who got into Navy. And if you know the requirements in the armed services, you couldn't be like over, I think, 6'5" or 6'6". It was David Robinson, who had a wonderful career, Hall of Fame career with the San Antonio Spurs. When he went into the Navy, he was below the threshold level, so he got in. In the Navy, though, at 18, 19, and 20, he actually grew to be like 6'11" and a quarter. That's an extreme example. But keep in mind, kids will develop at different paces. I want to just take a moment to talk about like the T-ball drills. If you're coaching or if you're a parent of T-ball players, I encourage you to pick this up. Now, I don't want you to go out and spend money you don't have. Go to your local library, go to the reference desk, tell them you want them to get this book. They'll, at first, they'll say they can't do it because it's self-published, but if you press them, they'll get it. There's no need for you to spend money you don't have, but if you do buy it, I appreciate it. The book has 110 T-ball drills, and the way I set it up is I would have an explanation of the drill. I'd describe it. I'd have a picture, and I'd have the benefits of the drill at the end. So I urge you all, if you have access to this or if you want to pick it up, I'll put an Amazon link on also afterwards just to show you. But it's T-ball drills. I encourage you, if you're involved in T-ball, to get access to this book. Okay. And I'm going to show you another product at the very end, which you don't have to do anything. I'll put a link on. I found that some of the kids, they didn't know their footing when we're teaching them to throw a T-ball. Now, this is something that it'll work with some kids and it won't work with others. I tried it with my daughter when she was young. And what I did is I took 4 pieces of oak tag I got at the local craft store. And very carefully, and actually I'm not as careful as my wife, I cut out the center like this, okay? And we set it up on the ground. I have 2 boxes like this, if they're lefty or righty. You start at a particular one. And I would demonstrate the steps they take, the movement, and I'd have them do the same thing. Trying to target to put their foot in the oak tag in the box. And what this is doing is just getting them used to correctly doing the right feet movement when they throw the ball. Now, if you do this, if you're passionate like I was and you're gonna spend the time setting this up, again, it'll work with some players, it won't work with others. Make sure you do this at first without a ball. Have them do it without a ball, then you could move up to like doing a tennis ball or soft cover T-ball. So this is what I call the 4 square step and throw. And all we're trying to do is have the players' foot movement, get them used to see how it feels like. Okay. You want to get, just like the bench drill, it's so beneficial if you get players used to feeling like what a good technique is. All right. You could talk to them till you're blue in the face, but sometimes they won't do it. But if you set up different drills where they're able to feel with their arm, with their legs, with their head, what is the correct way to do it? This was like muscle memory, and you reinforce it, it'll stay with them. Okay. Then I'll go to the next drill. I find with older kids sometimes, and I demonstrated with the foot movement, not necessarily T-ball, but I put a drill. I found that with like a basketball, and it doesn't have to be a basketball size, it could be a mini basketball. And I call this the basketball throw. And what I found is when they do this with a ball that's bigger than, let's say, a tennis ball or a T-ball, they're using both hands to hold it so they don't drop it because their hands aren't that big. But what's happening is naturally they'll get the correct leg movement because to overcompensate for using 2 hands, their legs will move, and you demonstrate. So this basketball throw drill is good for the leg movement, okay? And again, you don't have to use a regular basketball. They're not going to be able to do it. You can use a mini basketball, something bigger than a tennis ball or a T-ball where they have to use two hands. And the last drill is when the kids get a little older, and even if they have the right motion, a lot of times they'll throw sidearm. Okay, now if you follow baseball, you'll know that over the history of baseball with pitchers, there have been some sidearm pitches, but just because of the biomechanics, when you're throwing sidearm, you cannot last that long. So we want to get away from the sidearm throw when they're young. And what I did is I set up a drill. I call it the fence drill, throw drill. And what I do is with a bucket of balls, I have a player with their throw arm next to the fence, and they can either throw to another coach, target, or into free space, open space. They don't have to throw to anyone. I put them a little further from the fence, and I start inching them closer. And what you'll see is if they throw a sidearm, because psychologically they're right near the fence, they'll automatically start to throw it overhand rather than sidearm because they don't want to hit their hand against the fence and injure it. Now, you don't have to get close enough where they can hit the fence. You could be further enough away, and just the fact that the fence is there, and you show them how to throw overhand, they'll begin to do it. Okay? So those are all throwing drills. I encourage you, listen, I've written like 12 books on youth sports. When it comes to throwing, you could write almost an encyclopedia. You could get as detailed as possible with the biomechanics. You don't have to in T-ball. You have to keep it simple. And what you want to do is, what you're teaching them with throwing, you have to get or try to get parents involved to reinforce and have them practice at home. It's not always going to work. I'll be honest with you, I'm in a community with a lot of immigrants, a lot of good people that are hardworking, a lot of single moms, and a lot of them have two jobs. And to be realistic and ask them to practice with their son or daughter some of the techniques you're doing, it's not realistic, really. They're trying really to feed their family. But if you can, though, all right, if some of the families and you have the mother or father can reinforce some of the throwing techniques, that will definitely help you as a coach and help them in baseball and softball. The other thing is I mentioned I was going to show you another product. This I'm going to put up. It's free. It's going to be a link at the end of the video. It's called Backyard Baseball Drills. It could be backyard softball drills too. I do a number of different drills and creative things to do in your backyard. When my kids were young, for instance, I couldn't afford to go out and get $150, $250 net. I did something where I set up something similar, and I used a tarp I got at Home Depot for like $15, and I attached bungee cords with a bicycle hook to like two trees, two up and two down. Things like that are in here. And you don't have to have a backyard to do some of these drills. A lot of coaches coach in the inner cities. I've done a lot of clinics like in New York City and Boston. You could do a lot of these drills in the inner city. So I'm going to wrap it up. Again, I'm going to ask you, if you can, to please subscribe. Please, if you like this mini clinic, T-ball, please pass it on to your other coaches, your other parents, and the league president or league T-ball commissioner. And with that, I'll close it out. And please, again, please subscribe if you want to see this format continue. So I'll see you at third base. Until next time.